Hello, I am Ray Watkins here, and this is our critical assignment. I'll be taking you through our fitness education presentation for kinesiology 562. So, what we started off with first here was I got the wonderful opportunity to use my 7-year-old mother as a participant for this critical assignment. And to start this process off, what we did is we started with the client assessment. There are two different types of assessments that we took her through. I would say the first one was more of a global assessment. This would be a pre participation health screening. We chose the PAR-Q, which is the Physical Activity Readiness Questionnaire, and I had her fill this out. And along with that, we were able to find out some risk factor identification. So we could see some of her, health markers that maybe put her at risk for cardiovascular disease. But we allowed us to get an overall health assessment before we went ahead and programmed and did some testing. So some of the things that we found going through this pre-participation health screening was that she was advanced in age. That would put her at a cardiovascular risk. She did have diagnosed hypertension and was controlled with medication. The same with dyslipidemia or high cholesterol. And then assessment of her activity patterns showed that she was leading a sedentary lifestyle, which is something that we looked to change. The next assessment that we did was more of a direct physical assessment, which was the functional movement screen. Now, the purpose of this functional movement screen was to, I guess, identify certain muscle imbalances and ways that her body went and compensated for those imbalances, and that would open her up for a risk of injury with activity. Taking her through this 7 motion movement screen, what we did, we found definitely some limitations. The specific areas are listed here with hip and hamstring mobility, rotary stability, looking at core strength as well. Looking at she had some limited thoracic spine rotation, and then some basic unilateral lower body stability issues. Basically, I guess you want to talk about balance and lower body stability. The great thing about it, though, that there were no positive pain testing. There was no positives on those pain testing, so it showed that there wasn't any existing injuries, just some limitations in range of motion. So after taking that assessment, we're able to then go ahead and look at how can we design a proper program using cardiovascular exercise and resistance training to help her reach her goals. And that's one of the great things about this class is we're going to start with her goals first, and then we design and prescribe for that. So through that assessment process, what we did is we found that some of her major goals were weight loss, looking to increase her cardiovascular endurance, and actually she mentioned trying to improve some healthy eating behaviors here. That one is going to be a little bit more of a behavioral thing that we can work with, but I think the weight loss and increasing cardiovascular endurance is definitely something that we can go ahead and design a program to help her improve. So, looking at two different ways that we go ahead and design the program, the protocol design specifically was looking at okay, what type of exercises would we want our client Anita to use? We had to look into certain things as what type of equipment she had, her training age. Well, this is different than her chronological age. This is more of her, I guess, experience that she has with training, with resistance training specifically. Has she been in a weight room before? Those sort of things. So we had to take that into account. And then also the needs analysis, which definitely comes off of mostly going to be that functional movement screen. We're going to see, okay, what needs to improve so we can keep her at a lower injury risk and allow her to function at the level that she needs to reach her goals. So when we're looking at all right exercise selection, that's when taking those things into account, we looked at more body weight movements that we try to program for, looking for basic movement patterns, trying not to get overcomplicated just because of her low training age, and wanted to look at something that she could utilize at home because she was not using a gym. So, really looking at equipment that could be found, in your own living room. So using lightweight dumbbells, chairs or walls or things around the house, mostly body weight exercises because she did not have a gym membership, or nor did she have the need to with her training age and for some of the things that she needed to get into. After picking the selection, what we did is we moved into the exercise order. So that's we had to think about, okay, where, um, what order these exercises are going to go. Which one is she going to be performing first, second, and where's our priority? When we're looking at exercise order, we looked at using compound movements first. Those are going to be your more intense exercises. Compound movements being movements that use multiple muscle groups and work at multiple joints at once. And we put those at the front because we wanted those to be of a higher priority. And then putting more of your selectorized or isolated movements later in the exercise order to make sure we had enough energy for those compound movements. And then go along with that, the exercise intensity does relate to that. So your compound movements, your multi-joint movements are going to be higher intensity. Hence, those are going to be put first in the exercise order. And then your selectorized or isolated movements would be moved down lower in the order due to their lower intensity needs. The overall periodization for our clients' protocol here, we use the linear training model, so no need to have multiple undulating periodization models due to the fact we're dealing with, basic 8 weeks of training. That was going to be our full training cycle, and we broke it up into two mesocycles. So our 8 week macro cycle and two 4 week mesocycles there, and basically a linear training model. What that's going to do is that's going to have increases in intensity and frequency to a point where at the end of each mesocycle, you would have an unloading week where the intensity and frequency would drop. Um, when prescribing these frequency and intensities, we use the ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine's recommendations for general exercise and weight loss. That's where we get our frequency recommendations, our intensity recommendations, and time recommendations for both cardiovascular and resistance training. So when you look at cardiovascular training, the American College of Sports Medicine recommends for weight loss and some of those cardiovascular risk factors I need to add. We're looking at least 300 minutes of cardiovascular exercise, and then looking at a suggested frequency of two resistance training sessions a week, looking at an intensity of 60 to 70% of a theoretical 1 rep max. I like to look at more of an RPE scale as well too, since we have body weight exercises. But that's where we went ahead and got the periodization there. Now, what we have here is exercise technique, and that's something that's very important when you're dealing with beginners to exercise. And so, what we did is these two sections, we had an upper body movement and a lower body movement that we focused on. And when you go ahead and access these videos here, you'll be able to see for her compound movement for the upper body, we use the modified incline push-up. So that's going to be utilizing the pectoral muscles along with her triceps there. And when we first did it, her initial technique lacked a little bit of core strength. You can see when she does perform the modified push-up, her hips are elevated a bit. We went ahead and corrected that through her 8 weeks of training, and we modified the angle that allowed for a proper line of action and allowed her to go ahead and recruit the same muscle group in a full range of motion. And that's what we wanted to get the proper results. Moving to her lower body movement that we went ahead and made some assessments or adjustments to was the dumbbell chair squat. Her initial technique, we did see sort of a valgus weakness, so a weakness in possibly the vastus medialis, the VMO weakness, and she had a bit of a narrow stance, so it did not allow her to have proper knee tracking when she went into the squat. So what we did is when we corrected it, we had her have a wider base, and then we just made sure she was aware of her knee position and actually thinking of, I guess, screwing her heels into the ground, externally rotating her knees, and getting a wider base as she went into that squat position. So you can see comparisons of those when you go ahead and click on those embedded videos there. So we went through and made some exercise technique corrections. Now, this whole process definitely applies to the career that I'm currently in. And what it does is I look to continue to do this process. I like to put three main topics on it, as we like to assess, then we suggest, and that usually leads towards success. I know it kind of rhymes there. But when we assess, basically what we do is we provide safety. We make sure that our program or our testing is effective. It's testing what we want it to test, and that it's prudent and that it makes sense. And so when we have those three testing protocols there, what we can do is then move to the next section and merge some of our clients' goals and our professional expertise and suggest the certain exercises. Usually, when you have proper assessment and suggestion or programming, you will get success. That's when you can properly instruct and apply the program that you've assessed through proper or you suggested through proper assessment. And then lastly here, what we want to do is obviously look at our faith application, or how does God and how does our faith play into this role as, an exercise professional. And there are three main concepts that I think come to my mind here are compassion, stewardship, and being empowered by the Holy Spirit here. There are several different instances in the Bible. First, quoting off of the book of Luke, chapter 8, verses 43 to 48. And this is going to be where Jesus was healing the woman with the blood disorder. I think this plays a part into how we can show Christ-like characteristics by showing compassion to people that may be different than us, or maybe, outside of the norm. Some woman in those days who had a blood disorder was probably shunned and seen as unclean, but Jesus did not see that, and he showed compassion and healed her, as she definitely was able to touch his cloak and make that happen. Next, what we move into is the concept of stewardship. If you read 1 Corinthians 6:19, basically that's speaking to the fact that our bodies are not our own. We've been given them by God, and it's He paid a price for this for our bodies here. So it's us to steward this gift that He's given us by applying proper, healthy habits to take care of this, basically temple where Jesus and the Holy Spirit will reside. And then lastly, in the book of Luke, we can look at how Jesus spoke to the fact that he was empowered by the Holy Spirit. So it's something where it's not us as exercise professionals helping people. Yes, we are, but it's the Holy Spirit working through us to provide these people with the direct guidance and information that they need to, lead a healthier life. So I definitely think that those are three Christ-like characteristics that we can apply into our daily lives and our daily job as exercise professionals. So I hope this went ahead and all made sense. And thank you very much.